In the Field with Ron Hayes is brought to you by Oklahoma Farm Bureau. We farm here, we ranch here, we live here. We are rural Oklahoma.
Howdy, neighbors. Good morning, everybody. So glad to be along with you this morning. Joining us today is Michelle Miller. Michelle's from the state of Iowa and one of the keynoters this week at the Women in Agriculture statewide conference that was held in South Oklahoma City. Michelle, thanks for being with us today. And let's talk a little bit about your background. You're from the state of Iowa right now. Grew up kind of on a farm, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in Wisconsin and I was a 4-H kid. So, one of my best friends had a farm growing up. So every day after school we would do chores and they had a soybean farm. We'd ride horses every day. And I was in 4-H and really interested in agriculture then. So in high school you take those aptitude tests that tell you what you should be when you go into college and all that. And they said I should work in agriculture. But I ignored that, and I moved to Los Angeles and worked in fashion. So my life has come full circle. I come from the big city where I understand there's a very big disconnect with how our food is produced. So I spent about 12 years in Los Angeles and Chicago and moved to Florida, kind of traveled around a lot. And then about 5 years ago, I met my boyfriend. So I live with him in Iowa now, and we work and farm together, and I've basically learned so much about agriculture. Everything that I believed that I had heard in the big city was just completely wrong. So now I work to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers and encourage people to talk to farmers and not necessarily listen to the food labeling and the marketing and the idea that everybody's trying to sell them something.
Right. So now you've got on the social media world. You're the farm babe.
Farm babe.
And you talked to our Women in Agriculture conference. Some of the things you were talking about. You were talking about some of the things like issues with antibiotics, GMOs. We've got a lot of things out there that are maybe misconceived by some consumers.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to make money off of misconceptions with agriculture. So one of these would be the label antibiotic free. So what some people may not be aware is that if we use antibiotics in our livestock, by law, they have to go through a withdrawal period before they can go to market to ensure that the drug residue is out of their body. So essentially, all the meat and milk that we eat is antibiotic free. So that label can be a little bit, it can be misunderstood by some people.
Right. And, obviously there's some other things out there as well. Hormones is one of those big issues as well.
Yeah, there's another very big labeling misconception. When you go to the store and you see chicken that says no hormones added, you have to read the asterisks in the fine print, because right underneath it in teeny tiny print, it says, federal law strictly prohibits the use of hormones in poultry. So there's actually no such thing as growth hormones in poultry or pork or a lot of different, they're permitted in beef cattle, but there's really no nutritional difference. There's about a 0.6 nanogram difference. So you're looking at a fraction of a billionth of a gram, so there's really no way that it can affect us as consumers. But
very good. Michelle, appreciate your time today. Michelle Miller joining us today, one of the speakers at this year's Women in Agriculture statewide conference. We remind you, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can check out the latest on our agricultural news scene at OklahomaFarmReport.com and be listening to us on great radio stations all across the state on the Radio Oklahoma Network, a service of Griffin Communications. I'm Ron Hayes for News 9.